You've been a prosecutor. When you see the evidence, obviously we've had the Stormy Daniels case, all right, that may be relatively small potatoes by comparison to some of the others, but it was an indictment. We've then had the documents issue at Mar-a-Lago, which seems altogether much more serious. Then we've got what maybe more indictments coming on what happened with the Georgia phone call. And there may be more to follow after that as well, around January the 6th. He could end up with 4 different sets of indictments on criminal charges and yet still be able to run as president and, in fact, still be able to win as president. And potentially, if he gets put into a prison cell, which is almost unthinkable, but it could technically happen, he could still be president from his prison cell. Is that right, that can happen in your country?
No, it's not right for it to happen in our country. But I'll tell you, our founders never thought that anybody would be such an egomaniac that when charged with crimes, they would still run. You know, I remember everything that the media and a lot of people in America said when I was a young man about Richard Nixon. But when Richard Nixon was confronted with the reality that he was going to put the country through an impeachment trial, he put the country first and he resigned. Even though Nixon didn't think he should have resigned, but he did it for the good of the country. Can anyone imagine Donald Trump even doing that for the good of the country? And that's the problem. I love the people who say, I know he's not a great guy, but I like his policies. Well, the question is, if you like his policies, why would you ever hire him to get those policies implemented?
They would say back at you, all right, but you were with him for a long time, knowing exactly what he's like. I mean, I've known Trump a long time. He hasn't really changed his character.
He's gotten worse.
He's always told whoppers over the years, right? I don't think he's been the king of veracity for decades, right? So to suddenly wake up and go, all right, he's a terrible liar, I can't be with him anymore. How do you defend yourself against the charge? Well, you should have stood up against him much earlier.
Sure, because, this reminds me of a story about one of your former prime ministers. Prime Minister Cameron, I went over to visit in 2015, and he was getting ready to run for re-election. And he was telling me it's only 48 days, the election season in Great Britain. He said, how the hell do you guys do this for as long as you do it? And explain your system to me. And I said, well, David, I said, the easiest way to describe it is, in America, you don't necessarily get to vote for who you want to vote for. You get to vote for who's left. And in 2016, I ran against Donald Trump. I lost. Who was left was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I did not want Hillary Clinton to be president. And I will tell you, as we sit here right now, Piers, I have no regrets of helping Donald Trump get elected in 2016, because I think Hillary Clinton would have been a monumentally worse president than Donald Trump.
If he's the nominee this time round and beats you again to be nominee, would you vote for him?
Yeah, I've answered this one before. No.
You wouldn't?
No.
What's the difference between the last time?
Undercutting of the democracy. As I said, when you show you don't have respect...
So even if you would be more prepared for Biden to win again in that scenario?
I hope that neither one of them's the nominee. But I couldn't vote...
But if they are the two nominees,
well, then...
the option is that you would help Biden win.
No, I go on vacation.
So what would it say about America if Trump wins again?
Look, I think the rest of the world will look at us and think, why would you want someone of that awful character and that mediocre performance to be your president? And I think the rest of the world would question our votes. But let's face it, Piers, there have been a lot of times we look at other countries, too, and we question the people that they've elected. I mean, how many prime ministers have you guys had in the last, 3 years?
Don't even get me on my country.
Right? So we all have questions about that. But in the end, America's role is a little bit different. And we are the leader of democracy around the world. We are the arsenal of democracy. We are the shining light to people who look for us to be able to stand strong and defend liberty in the world. And we need somebody different than Donald Trump or Joe Biden to do that.
It's very interesting you raise that, because I've been really struck by the fact the Republican Party, in fact, of all the candidates, very split over this issue of Ukraine and how involved America should be. Some of the candidates implacably opposed to any more involvement, in fact, want to remove any more money and military hardware and so on. Many others completely full on behind Ukraine and supporting President Biden in giving them what they need. Where do you sit with this?
I sit fully behind Ukraine. We have to stand up against those kind of authoritarian aggressors. And remember, Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump says he's a terrific guy and a great leader. I don't know. It doesn't look like that to me. I stand behind Ukraine for that reason. Second, it's a proxy war with China. China is funding the Russians in this war. They are coordinating with Iran to provide
and watching to
weapons.
See what happens with regard to potentially invading Taiwan.
That's right, where I was going, Piers. You know, the Chinese are going to look at this and say, does America stand up for its friends? Taiwan's a friend of America. If we're not going to stand up for Ukraine, guess what? President Xi, another guy who Donald Trump thinks is a great guy and handsome too, he thinks that of Xi. Xi will be in Taiwan faster than you could say Jimmy Carter if we don't stand up in Ukraine. And so to me, they have deserved our support because of who they are. And we, in our own national interests, have to support Ukraine to send a very clear message to China, Iran, and North Korea.